Evening, everyone, and welcome to Spurs Kings TV for another episode of the Monday Pitch. Marlon's missing this evening, so I'm Mitch, and I'll be hosting the show for tonight. If you're looking for your Tottenham analysis, that'll be tomorrow with Ashmatic, and on Wednesday you've got the rival show, which is one to catch because that always goes off. As usual, we'll be getting into some talking points from this weekend in the Premier League. So, without further ado, let's bring in the panel for this evening. As usual, we've got Stocky. How's it going, mate?
Evening, Mitch. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
Having fun plugging a Spurs channel so far with your Newcastle kit?
Yes, it's all right. This is just the name of the channel. I'm going to announce now that I'm not doing "Come On You Spurs" at the end. Let's just say
What Spurs?
that. All right. Next up, we've got Sink. How's it going, mate? All right.
Good, thanks. Evening, lads. Hope you're both doing well.
You too, my friend.
Good.
And last but not least, the actual Spurs fan for the evening, we have our resident referee. How's it going, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I can do your Spurs analysis now. Crap. That's that done. Doesn't need to
bother. Evening, Chris. Hope you're doing well, mate. I know it's been a rough one.
Right, so let's get into it straight away. Breaking news for the day: Eric Ten Hag gone. What do you boys think of it? Chris, what do you think? Starting off,
I can't believe he lasted as long as he did. To be honest, I mean, fair play to him. I thought he was like a Teflon manager. Nothing seemed to stick to him. But yeah, I'll be honest. I was watching the Spurs game yesterday, keeping in touch with the other stuff. There didn't seem to be anything that controversial happening, and I'm refereeing wise, and I'm thinking, this will be fine. I won't be needed this week, and then there's that last minute penalty, and then Ten Hag gets sacked, and I'm like, oh my god, it's all kicked off. But yeah, look, I'll give a shout out to my best mate who's listening, Nathan. He's a United fan, and I think he's probably the same as all United fans. That he's quite happy, I think, today that he'll take the loss at United just to get rid of him. I think.
Yeah, that seems to be the way with the United fans today. All the United fans are happy, and the rest of football is mourning the fact that they might actually get someone to do a bit better.
I don't think they got much to worry about, to be honest. Either way, I think there's a lot wrong with the problem.
What do we think? Right choice, right time?
I think Chris has got it spot on. Really, it's an inevitable. The run of results. It's not just the results, but the performances. It's just everything's just been very sour, very negative. It's just not good enough for what you expect at Manchester United, and it's the writings on the wall. Like Chris said, it's a surprise he's lasted this long. So, what's next now? Is like who do they get in next? Really, is the big question.
Well, I was looking online just before we come on, and there's the big link is Amarim from Sporting.
Oh yeah,
who's been quite coveted for a couple of years. They've done really well. Yeah, he's done well. Ten Hag's done well to stay in the job as long as he did, but I also think that was indicative of wider failings across that club. Yeah. For gents our age, having watched Man United dominate through the 90s, like well into the 2000s, just a shadow of that club. Like, well, you could point it down to the Ferguson, the Glazers thing, but like he underperformed for a long time. But at the same time, a lot of these players did not help him. I mean, he's been sacked on the back of losing to West Ham. I didn't go this week, so that's probably why we won. But my old man messaged me after 30 minutes saying we should be 4-0 down. Dallo missed like the most open of open goals. Like, it's when you're a coach, you can have all the goodwill and all the plans, whether or not they're the right plans for the game. But once you ask them what to do or tell them what to do, it's their job to execute, whether your plan's good or bad. Sometimes there's a none of it, bad gap, but everyone done the job you wanted. Sometimes you've got to look at them and say, can all of them players look at themselves and say they've covered himself as well? I don't think money can come.
Yeah, I think that's something that's been featuring throughout all of these managers. You could always question the commitment of the players that have been putting on the shirt on to represent Man United, and they haven't represented that standard that what we're used to anyway. None of them really, few and far between. If any players.
I was just having a look at the odds actually for the United manager. The bookies have got Amorim about 80% likely to take the job, so he's very short price.
That's good. Because I was hearing earlier that Southgate was top of the charts. Like, oh my word!
I think they might take Ten Hag back, and they over Southgate.
Oh mate, if they ever brought in Southgate, oh my gosh, mate.
So rolling back to what you said, Sink, do you think that there's something just built in within the club in these times that it's no matter who they bring in, they're not going to be able to get these players to perform because something's gone wrong at the top?
I just don't see it. You'd have to have a very exceptional, lucky manager to just turn it around. Like, I don't think they have what Chelsea have in terms of Chelsea have a squad of players to select from for Maresca to do what he's doing, and you can see slowly that he's actually imprinting his image on Chelsea. Whereas at Man United, I don't think they have the right balance of players to choose from, and a lot of the time it's injuries as well. Like their back line for however many seasons has always been hammered with injuries. They're just everything just seems wrong at the club at the moment. Like from the management of the club, from the behind the scenes to on the field to even like just management that they have it in play. Certain managers just haven't been good enough. I don't think, or the right choice for Manchester United.
Yeah, managers and players, I would put that down to.
Yeah,
A lot
but
of
everything,
money, players.
even the people making the decisions as well. They got to hold responsibility and accountability for what's gone on. So hopefully, with Radcliffe, maybe he can change the culture, and you will start to see a different Manchester United. But I won't hold my breath. Put it that way.
Well, even the new owners kept it. They decided to keep him in the summer, backed him, and then
I think that was.
like
To be honest, I think that was. To be honest with that, I think that was probably one of the best decisions that they've made in terms of they didn't actually get the person that they wanted, so they just didn't bring anyone in. They waited. It's like, well, we couldn't get the one that we wanted to get, so what we'll do, we'll wait, see what Ten Hag does, and if he doesn't, then then we'll react then, because they're not going to be worrying about relegation. Obviously get back into Champions League, but at the end of the day, they've not achieved it in so often. I don't think that's even a priority. They just need to sort themselves out before they even think about things like that.
I mean, everyone knew in the summer that they were looking at other managers, right? So it's not a massive surprise. But what does surprise me is how much money they gave him in the summer to go out.
That's the only other thing as well is that the transfer window, how much they spent. Yeah, ridiculous.
Over 200 mil.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's basically Ajax from about 1999. That's a bit old. 2019, isn't it? That's basically what it is.
That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to just go with what he knows, isn't it? Like trying to get reliable players that he's familiar with and that are familiar with his system, but it just didn't work.
I think yeah. There's also a lot of players at the club. Some players they've brought in, some players are there, but I think because they play for Man United, I just think what they can do is just massively overinflated. Whether it's supporters, whether it's people in the club, whether it's the media fanboys, because they've always got a former Man United player on panels and what's not talking about these things. Maybe some of them just ain't good enough.
Yeah, it is,
or not half as good as what they're billed to be. So when push comes to shove, there's no backbone.
No. And they just don't have that character, that commitment. Like you have the typical Roy Keane just having a go at half time, just all the stuff that he's talking about, just the fundamentals of just how to be a good professional. You don't have it half the time.
That's a fair point. Before we move on, Chris mentioned it briefly earlier, the penalty decision. I don't know if everybody's seen it, but I'm guessing most have. I tried to be fancy like Marlon and bring pictures up, but it didn't work. What do we think on the decision? But ultimately, has lost Ten Hag his job in the reality of things.
I'd
I think
say that's fortunate.
because it's definitely seen it. Have you seen it, Sig?
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so we'll let Stocks have his say, and then we can get Chris to clear it up for us.
Oh, it's fortunate as you like. I think it's a bit soft. Well, I say a bit soft. It's very soft. But do you know what? I've been on the rough end of decisions as a West Ham supporter, so I don't really care. But I wouldn't have given it. I think, we got proper lucky, but I don't care. It's funny.
And it's 3 points at the end of the day as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no competition for the Corinthian spirit. So that give me some points.
So
I guess it's over to me, is it? Right, okay. I think the last couple of weeks I've just kind of backed the decisions, but this one's a bit tougher. But yeah, look, I'll stick with what I said when I was talking about it yesterday to some mates. What's undoubtedly clear is that is not a clear and obvious error, right? So there's two different discussions. Is it a foul? Maybe, maybe not. I actually think it probably just about is, but it's very soft. But if the ref doesn't give it, they're trying to back the referees this season and have the idea, like in cricket, when you have umpires call, they're trying to kind of establish that in football. So, I mean, that's just a decision. You've got to leave it to the referee on the pitch. Is that clear and obvious evidence that that's a massive mistake? I just don't think there is. So, but having said that, if it had given it, I don't think VAR would have. Well, obviously they wouldn't have got involved because they thought it was a penalty. But I don't think it should have been overturned if it was given. But if that's given against your club, you're going to be fuming, aren't you, really? I mean, it was as much a coming together. I'm edging slightly towards, it was the kind of foul that you'll get given in the centre circle, right? Do you want to, as a ref, do you want to give penalties for those sort of things? Whether we like it or not, and maybe a debate for a different day, but there's a higher bar in the penalty area to get a penalty given to you. I don't think that really gets near to that bar. So I was surprised, to say the least, that they got it given.
Do you reckon it was the amazing atmosphere in the ground that made them change their mind?
Well, I imagine all the West Ham fans had a clear view of it from 300 yards away in their seat, I imagine.
You mean you don't have binoculars at the top of the cop? Football supporters shout for anything these days. Every ground's getting like Anfield, where they just shout handball at everything. So I'm not surprised we did.
The only thing I will challenge, this is my absolute referee coming out here. I hate the kind of narrative of that VAR decision got Ten Hag the sack. No, it didn't. 2.5 years of being a shit manager got Ten Hag the sack. Like, that's had 0.0001% influence in the decision, right? It's not. Are we saying that if that doesn't happen, they're going to keep him on and he's going to lead United to glory? I don't think so.
Is that what all refs are saying about Ten Hag?
That's the official referee's opinion of Ten Hag.
I'd say, actually, just quickly on managers, there was one manager who had a nickname amongst referees, and that was Neil Warnock.
Oh, right.
All referees, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but all referees called him Colin. Because if you do an anagram of his name and you take Colin out as the first name, it leaves certain letters left, which are W, N, K, E, R, and A. Right, all referees refer to Warnock as Colin.
I love it. I love it. I know.
Right, we'll stick on the subject of managers. I'm going to throw two names in this one. Could both of Ange and Eddie Howe be coming under slight bits of pressure soon? I know Tottenham are probably sitting in eighth or ninth at the minute, but especially Howe. What do you guys think before I have my say on it? Because as the weeks go by, I feel like the pressure is building ever so slightly.
As a neutral, I'll just throw my 2 pence in first. I feel like there's probably more pressure on Eddie Howe at this present moment in time than Ange. I feel Ange has got a little bit more weight to go behind him. With Eddie, I feel like the pressure's on a bit. especially now you got Tonali back. You got in, you almost got all the injured players back. You should be hitting some sort of form. And I think the other thing I feel like which kind of puts him under pressure as well is how well Aston Villa are doing. I feel like they're kind of at a similar place in terms of Newcastle got into the Champions League first, and Aston Villa were a similar team doing similar things at the same time. When because they're flying, I think the expectations are for Eddie to be at least matching them or be a little bit more consistent with his results and everything else. It's all about results now for Newcastle. So that's just my opinion with Eddie and Ange. I feel like Eddie's under a little bit more pressure.
They're definitely two different situations. I'd say with Tottenham in a minute, they're going from good one week, although West Ham included, opposition was questionable. But they're going from good to bad. Whereas I wasn't too aware that there was big pressure on Newcastle. I mean, I thought Eddie Howe overperformed with them the other year with what he done some really good coaching. He improved it, but sometimes, especially in sort of modern day sports, sometimes the message might get a bit stale, and maybe it's just getting a bit stale up there. And what do you do? What's cheaper to do? Do you get new players and tell them the message, or is it cheaper just to get a new message and change the coach and freshen it up? It may be where they're at because you can't. If players like Grimerish, Isaac, and by the way, he done some couple of strange things at the weekend as well. Isaac, that's not the player I was ripping it up the other year. Yeah, maybe it's a lot better at this point for Newcastle to change the message and maybe get that manager to break them into the tier consistently that they probably need to be in. Say want to be in, need to be in at this point. Whereas Tottenham, Ange's message is still fresh, and I think fresher, and I think he's got a lot more to go in it. Although if he carries on winning good ones and losing a shit one, that may ultimately bite him in the arse. But I don't think it'll bite him in the arse as soon as it might for Howe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so depressing, honestly. And the Spurs fan base had split really. So, and it's weird. There's no middle ground. Like Ange is either the Messiah or, to quote a Life of Brian reference, he's a very naughty boy. He's one of the two. I'm more in the latter camp. I think we yesterday's performance was not a one-off. We stink the place out. We've won 3 away games in 2024. 2 of those are against 10 men, and one of them was against an already relegated Sheffield United. It's absolutely appalling, our away form. That's in the league, by the way. We did beat Coventry and Ferencvaros, just for the record. The problem is, though, he doesn't stink the place out regularly enough. And when it works, it looks quite good. Like second half against West Ham, we look decent. So that happens, and then half the Spurs fan base are like, he's amazing, this is brilliant. And then we go and stink it out the next week. I think this is going to repeat as a pattern for quite a long time until enough fans get on Levy's back, and then Levy will sack him just to save his own skin, basically. But I wouldn't. I don't think, if I'm honest, it matters who's manager at Tottenham. It really makes no difference. None of them are ever going to achieve anything while Levy and Enoch are there. But Levy will stick by him as long as he can. So I don't think it's imminent. But football can move really quickly, right? We've got City at home in the cup. If he puts a reserve team out, loses that. We lose to Villa at the weekend, which is really possible. It can switch quite quickly. I did say at the start of the season to my mates, Ange to be the first manager to lose his job was a shout, but unfortunately that's gone out the window today. But
Yep, Ten Hag has beaten him.
Yeah. See, that was kind of the reason I bracketed both together, because Tottenham have got a difficult little run, and Newcastle have got Chelsea again, and then we've got Arsenal at the weekend. And I think losing both of them, as much as I still feel that Howe's got a decent bit of credit in the bank, because off of the Champions League season and last season, we still finished in a decent place. regardless of all of the injuries and stuff. I still feel like he's got a little bit of credit, but I can see why it would be waning for some people because beginning of the season, we were getting results, weren't playing well. Then we played well for a couple of games and stopped getting results. And now for the last 2 games, we haven't really played that well and haven't got results at the same time. So it's not going in a good way for him. So a couple more games like that and it could all go wrong. But then he could go and beat Chelsea on Wednesday and beat Arsenal at the weekend because they're both at St James's Park. So we could be having
a question for you, Mitch. Because at the start of the season, I put Isak and Anthony Gordon in my fantasy football team, and they've been absolutely rubbish. So what has gone on there? Why are they nowhere near what they were last year?
Isak's had a few injuries, a few little niggles, and to be honest, he's probably the most isolated player in the league when we're playing games. We don't get anyone anywhere near him. We're playing him like we've got Shearer up front. We're pumping it long and hoping he holds it up for the rest of the team to catch up. And it's just not how we need to play with him. We need to get it into his feet and get around him. And I think Anthony Gordon, as much as he probably enjoyed his trip to his holiday to the Euros, should I say, as he only got 6 minutes, I think it's not done him any favours at all because he's had no pre-season. It's taken him ages to get up to speed. And just as he looked like he was getting a bit of form, he's got an injury now.
Right.
Yeah, so not looking good at all.
And just another question with the because there was a change in the ownership, right?
What, for Newcastle?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 2.5 years ago. About 2.5 years ago now.
No, I'm talking about the lady. She stepped aside, didn't she?
Oh yeah, she's sold her stakes. So she was basically the face of the consortium.
Okay.
She was the one that did all of the talking and did all of the PR stuff around the players and stuff like that. She had it probably does her role a little bit of a disservice because the players and everybody seemed to love her and no one really seems to be doing what she was doing now. So that potentially could have had an effect because she would seem to be the bridge between sort of all of the backroom upstairs and the actual playing staff of the club.
So in terms of now the backroom staff having more control, do you feel like they would have the patience that they had maybe last season, or do you think they'll be a little bit more cutthroat now?
I think it'll be a lot more cutthroat now because her and Howe had a really good relationship, and I don't think Howe has an ally like that in the boardroom now. I think once it gets to a point and they think that's enough, they're just gonna go, right, that's enough, and probably bring in someone who suits what they want to do a little bit more. Because Howe wants to be a manager, whereas I think we're now set up for a head coach.
There's lots of rumours now about Amanda Staveley investing in Tottenham, right? Taking some minority share in Spurs. I don't know. From a Spurs fan perspective, I'm not sure it makes much difference to us unless someone can actually get rid of Enoch.
I genuinely
I understand it's quite political.
Genuinely think that'd be quite good for you because that bit that I was talking about of bridging like the upstairs backroom staff with everything else and putting on the good PR face, she's absolutely fantastic at it. And it brought a whole different feeling to the club just having her around.
I mean, that'd be great. I just don't know what Levy's going to let her do. I was told something about it being some political thing and the link she's got to Saudi being something to do with the NFL, and that's what it's all about. But I don't really know.
Yeah.
Something to watch the space.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing I was actually going to touch on before we move on was the kind of the Villa comparison. It's a good one, but I feel the next sort of few weeks will really show us where Villa are at, because this time last season we were in a very similar spot.
Yeah.
We were 3 games into the Champions League, really difficult group, hadn't lost. We were in a decent spot in the league, and then the wheels came off.
The thing is, as well, I think you got to take into massive consideration is that Villa they've sold maybe 1 or 2 players they didn't really want to sell, but they've kept their squad predominantly fit for this period of time as well. And also, they've had a new. We may not know how the new format of the Champions League is helping them or making it a disadvantage for them.
I think it does them a favour because you get 3 games that could be a lot easier than what you would have got if you've got a group where you've got to play everybody twice, 3 or 4 games. You can look at and think, we can win those.
So there's other variables as well which you got to put in there into consideration. That I feel
they've got a manager that's been there and done it as well.
I was going to say that. I think
that's massive.
But by the way, as if I needed any help hating Arsenal, but the way they treated Unai Emery, like what? Yeah, that really annoyed me. And then for him to go on and do really well with Villa, I'm pleased for him, and I seldom get pleased for people in football, but I really like him.
No, he's got a good personality about him. I mean, he's good with answering questions when it's in tougher situations. I feel.
And he's improved a lot of players. A lot of players are improved.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Actually, just looping back to Ange, that's one of the key questions people are asking. Which players have improved under Ange Postecoglou? And it's really hard to an answer.
Romero, he's made slightly less crazy.
He's not as aggressive.
He's been all over.
Chilled out, mate.
Yeah, he's chilled out, but he's also been rubbish this season. Really poor. I'm not really sure. Some people say Porro maybe, but like Maddison and I mean Kulusevski's done all right this season. But aside from that, most players are not playing as well as they were a couple of years ago. But
interesting point, actually.
Yeah, that is something to look out for. That can Spurs turn their form around? So Maddison does get back to those heights. Can he turn it around?
Nah, he can't.
But the thing we're getting to with Spurs at the minute is in a couple of games, you're looking at a full year on from that 10-game run where they were amazing. I know you can't really bridge the seasons like that, but it is pretty much a full season's worth of football where they've been either very hit and miss or not very good.
Yeah.
36 games since then now, and we've lost 19 of those 36 games. A lot.
19.
19 of those 36 games.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, that's a lot of body of work to give yourself a little bit of comparison to see what you can expect for going forward. And I can see now why you've made that assumption that what you've seen will carry on for the remainder of this season. You can see the patterns coming already.
Yeah, he's still living off that 10-game spell. We were top of the league, obviously. He's still living off that, right? Because if that didn't happen, I don't think he's there now. I think he's already got the sack. So he's literally living off that, in my opinion.
Probably.
People in the comments are saying they'd rather have Howe than
that was me.
Oh, was it? All right. What?
Amen.
Right, let's get on to the next topic of the evening, the relegation battle, which kind of follows on because looking at the table, I'd love to have brought this up. I've cropped a table from 8th down, which is where Tottenham are.
Yeah.
You've got Tottenham on 13, these Brentford on 13, Fulham 12, Bournemouth 12, Newcastle 12, West Ham and Man United both on 11, Leicester and Everton both on 9, Palace on 6, Ipswich on 4, Wolves on 2, and Southampton on 1. So the main question is, can you see any of them bigger names just hovering above, really getting dragged into a relegation scrap? And can you see any of them bottom 2 who look to already be getting cut adrift a little bit, turning things around? The bottom 2 being Wolves and Southampton.
I mean, do you want to go, Stocky? You go, Stock.
Oh, no. I'll have some comedy in mind because I'm going to be closest to it out of everyone.
To be honest, I feel like West Ham and Man United will be safe. I feel like the league is quite misleading. Ipswich coming up, they look like they give a good go, but they just come and start. They're just missing too much. There's too much of a big gap for them. Wolves, for me, I feel like they can start getting a few results going their way. Southampton, I don't think they've got any chance to staying up, to be honest. And with Palace and Everton and Leicester, really, I can. That's the thing. I can see this relegation changing, the bottom two changing quite a lot throughout the course of the season. Southampton, I've written them off, but I don't see Man United staying there. I don't see West Ham getting dragged in. I can see them starting to get a good little bit of run of form and then keep themselves safe. But Leicester, Everton, Palace, Ipswich, and Wolves could be trading places. You could toss it up between the five of those teams. I feel like that the other two that could go down, just from my perspective, looking at it right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with much of that. I don't think Ipswich will stay up. I just don't. I just can't see it. I mean, yeah, they give it a good go, but they're not. There's just not enough there. I don't think so. I think Southampton and Ipswich will definitely go down. I think it will be the three that came up. I think Leicester will drop down eventually, but I see it as Ipswich, Southampton will get cut off, and then Wolves, Palace, Everton, Leicester probably fight for the last one. I think Everton will do all right. I think they always seem to pick up at some point. Same with Palace, probably. There's too many good players at Palace, I reckon, for them to really. I know that's come back to bite other teams before, but I reckon it'll be Ipswich, Southampton, and then Leicester and Wolves, maybe. My dad he's not with us anymore, bless him, but he was a Wolves fan. My family are from Wolverhampton, so I'm going to say that they stay up. And I'm going to go with Southampton, Ipswich, and Leicester to go straight back down again.
Fair enough. Stocky, as you believe you're going to be the closest one to it.
Oh yeah, easily. Do you know what? I try not to look at tables, but I think it was after 7 games I looked at the table and I was like, "Cool, West Ham have been dreadful. We're going to be slowly." I was like, "How are we 7 points off the bottom of the league? How dreadful must they be? Because we've generally been pretty toss." Like, and even looking at it now, how can we be 10 points off the bottom and not played particularly well? Southampton are bad. Despite them coming up, I've got a good friend who's a Southampton supporter. He utterly hates Russell Martin. They sound like in a bad way. Like, there's no goals and they can't defend. That's not good. If you're struggling down the bottom, just be effective as if you can in both boxes, and the middle bit will sort itself out. And they're doing none of the three, so it doesn't look good. In a way, I like Ipswich. I think that Delap is a good player. I think he'll get goals. I reckon he'll get 15 goals, which will keep them in the fight as long as they can. Perhaps they're lacking as a squad, but I think he will get quite a few goals, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's picked up by a team higher up the league. Actually, I thought Palace were going to have a bit of a disastrous year, the way they started. Luckily, they had Tottenham, so they got that win. Tottenham, they hit lucky. If they played Tottenham next, they'd probably get spanked.
Yeah.
But they got them on the off week. But I thought they were going to struggle. I said on here a few weeks ago, as soon as Everton get Braithwaite back, Dyche has got his star defender, and he's going to absolutely Dyche it, and they'll get 40 points by March, and they'll be coasting. I don't know about Leicester. I'm really unsure. I don't know whether they're good, bad, or something else. And I reckon West Ham might do. Hopefully, we'll get to 40 by March. March, beginning of April, and I can just maybe enjoy a few games. Wolves are interesting. I really like Gary O'Neill, and I think they got some good players, but are they as unlucky as they make out to be?
I feel like they don't get the rub of the green. I feel like they need a big smudge of.
At some point, they're going to get it, but they'll get it in a game where they don't need it.
Yeah.
Or they'll get all their luck in just one game.
Exactly.
They've been on the rough end of a lot of refereeing decisions, but what they've also done consistently over the last 2 or 3 years is sell their best players and not buy anyone near going to replace them. And that ultimately that catches up with you, right? exactly what happened to Southampton in the past when they went down last time. You know, they had all those youth players who they had over the years, Lovren and Van
We had
Dijk and Lallana and all those players. You can't keep
and
doing that all the time, and eventually it will come back to haunt you. And that's where Wolves are. They've got in a lot of PSR issues. So they haven't been able to bring players in. You know, where's that? They sold Kilman, and who else did they sell?
Neto.
And then the year, last year or the year before, they sold Neves. So they're getting rid of all their best players, and they're just not replacing them with anyone nearly as good.
Yeah. So I was going to start on Wolves mainly because I actually think they're miles better than what their position shows. Because this season, I've lost it now. Typical.
They have conceded 25 in nine matches, which is quite impressive.
That is quite bad. But listen to the 9 games they've played in the league so far: Arsenal, Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, who are flying, Newcastle, Villa, Liverpool, Brentford, Man City, Brighton.
yeah, no, they've played with the top teams so far.
It's literally
and
they're
in
all
some of those
around
games,
the top
they've
10.
been quite close as well.
Yeah. So apart from I think Tottenham and I think there might be one other missing, that's pretty much all of last season's top 10. So with losing players, they've had probably the worst possible start they could get to a season fixture wise. And
Just looking at their fixtures, actually, they've got Palace at home next week and then Southampton at home the week after. So you'll find out a lot in those 2 games.
yeah, I think they'll really start turning the corner, which then probably does fall into the discussion of the 3 that came up going back down, because I look at Palace and I think surely they've got too much. Everton, it's just Dyche. It's Dyche football. Once he's got his centre backs set and the 2 that sit in front of him, he's not really going to concede many goals. So I'm not sure who else then gets dragged into it. I think all the other teams above that are just too good for it. Beginning of this season, I might have chucked Bournemouth in there, but the way they play and how they're playing under Areola is very good, and Fulham have got a ridiculously good setup at the minute as well. So,
Do you think that gap is just getting too big now? Because you look at Southampton and Ipswich, they've played 18 games between them. They haven't won one. Last season, Sheffield United and Burnley really stunk the division out, right? I mean, is it just so big now that it's almost impossible for them when they come up?
I think, as weird as this is going to sound, it takes one of the bigger clubs to come up, because they can gamble a little bit more, like Forest did, because they can instantly get more revenue in and stuff like that. So when the smaller clubs who haven't got massive stadiums or massive fan bases do come up, I think they'll struggle an awful lot more, and that's not going to change for a long time.
Yeah, and that's why it's a massive credit to Bournemouth for doing what they're doing, because their hands tied right behind their backs. They can't really expand their stadium any bigger than what it is.
Yeah,
like they've got to I don't even know how they do it, but they've got to figure out a way to be competitive in this league. And the thing is, as well, the Championship is just something else. It's an animal itself, and I don't think the way how the league is, it doesn't allow you to set up to be ready for the Premier League, because the football is completely different, and it's the amount of games you get, how frequent you get them. Like the squads are same sort of. You don't get the depth, but what you're trying to do is get bodies in just to make sure you can get the games done. That's why in the Championship, it's like you can be on a good run of games, but there's going to come a time where your form is just going to go and hit the floor. Like QPR at the moment, we can't even buy it. We can't even buy a win. So, and at some point, I expect that we'll turn that form around and we'll get into a good groove. But the gap is just so massive for any teams in the Championship that once they come up, you just can't prepare for it anymore. Like before, when you used to win the playoff, you'd get that money and be like, all right, we can try and make a good go for it. Whereas now, clubs don't really want to spend money like that. And even if you do, like, it's so much just for one quality player to try and change it around. So
you're getting
the
one
money,
or two new players on the loan, ain't you?
yeah,
It's
Tell
like,
you what baffles me though about the teams and I think Pep has got a lot to answer for in the English game, and like you see teams
Massively.
playing out from the back right throughout the whole of the football league. Now Burnley absolutely destroyed the Championship 2 years ago now,
Yeah.
playing that way, right? But they come up to the Premier League. It's clearly not working, but Company just carries on doing it. Russell Martin doing exactly the same this season. Like, stop playing around at like Tottenham can't do it, right? We play around at the back. You saw the goal we conceded yesterday, farcical. I just don't get these players who are not good enough trying to play like they're playing for Man City or Real Madrid. Like, yeah, the day that I watch Sean Dyche's Everton and see that their centre backs are passing it around at the back trying to play out, I think football's dead. I think I'll give up at
what?
that stage.
You don't fancy Keenan Tarkowski to knock it about in a little rondo?
I don't fancy Romero and Van der Ven, but it doesn't stop him trying, unfortunately.
Listen, I remember when John Stones used to do that at Everton, and the Everton fans would go mad. And I remember one particular game, I remember John Stones turning around, putting his finger up to the fans, telling them to calm down. I remember at that point, it's like, yeah, his time's up. He's off his track. He's
Yeah,
going. He
then.
must be somewhere where he can express himself in that way. And where
you
he
know
end up,
Yeah. But we just said about all this passing out. I'm a nerd and I love it. So I'll look at all the like little training videos and everything, and I'm like, it looks so good on a chalkboard and the magnetic board when you move it around. You're like, oh, you're getting 4v4, and you got the space in the middle for you run. Football doesn't work like that. Like, I know the ideas are good, but basics, and this is it's like, where do you want to be? It's so infuriating. You defeat yourself before you give yourself a chance, and we're like
So yeah, I've got to share just my frustration from yesterday with you. With Ange takes off Kulusevski and Madison, right? Our two creative players, puts two strikers on, which is almost unheard of these days, right? It's almost an unwritten rule. You can't have two strikers. But anyway, fair play to him. He got two strikers on, and then we just pass it around them in the defence. Like, what? We're 1-0 down. Like, what on earth are we doing? Like, just we're trying to get an equaliser. Like, attack, boys, not keep passing it around in the defence.
yeah, but that's the thing with today's football. Players don't know how to figure something out on the pitch by themselves. They need a half time for the manager to come in and explain to them, all right, we're going to change the tactics, we're going to do this. Whereas in the days where in the noughties and the 90s, like Wenger, he would say to his boys, just go out there and play. He'd have you set up in a certain formation, but he wouldn't give too much tactical strategies and whatnot. It would be literally tell them, go out and express yourself, what you think is gonna unlock the defense. So, but whereas today, it's not like that. They follow a strict strategy. Like you hear,
No leaders thing.
but
No
even with like stories with Henri, and he talks about when he played with Pep and how we try and do things different, and Pep would say, "Nope, I want you out wide, stay wide." Like that's just how players are now. Like they're in their systems, and that's it. Until the manager says something at halftime, they can't figure it out by themselves.
I think that breed of players kind of gone a little bit. The ones that take responsibility on the pitch. You mentioned Henri, and I was literally thinking. Unfortunately, I was thinking of Arsenal. But you think of that sort of team of Seaman, Adams, and Keown, and Vieira, and Petit. Right, they'd all kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck. But I don't think those kind of players really exist anymore too much.
No.
I think that's why Palmer's been a bit of a breath of fresh air, to be fair.
Absolutely.
That ball for Neto. Oh, that's filth. You don't no coach would know you was going to give you that. Huh?
The defending was horrific all round for that.
But you said you've been telling me for 2 years how great Tino is.
Huh?
You're telling me how great Tino is.
Yeah, he's great, but he was horrendous in that moment. Running into no man's land. The other thing I would say on teams that come up and how football's gone, I think too many managers get caught in the old saying of this is what we are, mate. Like there's very few teams in world football that can play how they want to play every week and win most games.
Yeah, massive. Too
many managers are too stubborn to go, we need to stop them doing this before we do this, and this. And that is the way these like most of the teams in the league, like you've got to say 70% of the league should really be going about that way a lot of the time. We have to do this before we try and do our game, rather than that's our game, make them stop us. Because there's not
Any chance you could tell Ange that? That would be really helpful.
Do you know, it's funny, like when we was coming up and playing football, like you'd always have like older players or coaches saying, you know, you got to earn the right to play. So,
Yeah.
you know, you got to do the ugly side of the game first before you can even start enjoying your football. Just like things like that. I'm not saying the players of today don't know that or even understand that, but it's just a far cry from where we was, and just how it is today is just it's just night and day, so different.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Final topic of the evening, right up to the other end of the table. Are Man City just too good? So this weekend, Liverpool have dropped points, Arsenal have dropped points. Neither of the teams, we're still, everybody's still kind of unsure on Liverpool. Arsenal have had a little bit of a blip. Man City have got, I would say, 5 or 6 quite heavy injuries, but still keep churning out results. Are they just a juggernaut that can't be stopped, and someone has to do something ridiculous to stop them winning the league?
Yeah. Or no, simply, do you know what? We just hinted how Pep's made the rest of English football crap, but I think for him and Man City, you watch it and you think, good God, like we just said about players, you got to earn the right. I don't think you see the beauty in Man City till you watch them live, because watching them live this year, every player works his nuts off. The reason they're so good and always in the right places is because they're all constantly working.
Yeah.
And when you watch it on telly, I don't think you just like, oh yeah, look, they're just passing it around. It's easy to them. But all the players off the ball and what they do just pull you into places you don't mean to be. It just happens. And all right, we just complained that style of coaching is destroying a lot of football. But for Man City, just watching it, it's fucking amazing. And there's, to be honest, if they're on an off day and you're on the best day, you can knock them out. But generally, the juggernaut's the perfect description for me. And even if they're struggling, you can just hit Haaland. It's a little bit not fair. But
they are one of the teams that can just go out and go, right, this is how we play. Do something about it.
But even with that, like what you just pointed out, with managers coming up and not having a plan B, Pep always has like a little tweak. He'll change things. Like even he adapts his own football. Even when he doesn't need to, he'll change it just because he feels like it, or he's seen something and he just changes it. But one thing for me with City this season is one, Kevin De Bruyne being injured and Rodri being injured. I thought when Rodri got injured, I thought that will, you know, put the brakes on their form, so to speak, and you start seeing more stuttery flow to their game. But I haven't seen that, and also they are getting the results. And normally as well, the beginning part of the season is always the best time to get at City, but no one's been able to really do it. I mean, who was it? Who was it? Who was it? Can't remember who it was. Was it Wolves? Yeah, Wolves when they right at the end when he lost. When
Oh,
they
yeah,
lost,
John Stones header.
yeah, the John Stones header. I think that was probably one of the closest games that I've had where they've been out of form, where they haven't had hit. But
Actually, I think they've struggled a little bit. No, I don't think they're as good. I mean, they are good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think they've been as good. Like it was 1-0 against Southampton, the last minute goal against City, last minute equaliser against 10-man Arsenal. They didn't play well at home to Fulham. I'm not saying that they're not on a different level, but I just don't think they've been quite the powerhouse that they were in previous years. By the way, breaking news is that Rodri's just won the Ballon d'Or.
Oh, he's deserved it to be.
wow! Actually, someone deserves it.
Yeah, and you know what? Bringing up Rodri, and that's the reason that I'm saying that they are for me on the different levels, because normally when Rodri's out of that team, they're susceptible, but they're getting the results. That's the thing. If they wasn't getting these results, then I would say nah, because they haven't got Rodri. When Rodri's there, then they are on a different level. But because they're getting the results without Rodri, that's why I'm saying that they are on a different level at the moment. They are getting the results, making sure that they've got their stranglehold in this league.
I think that's why they don't look as good. Obviously, losing Rodri is massive, and as much as it is probably affecting them of how dominant they are in games and how easy they dispatch teams, I think now that Pep knows it's a long period of time, he'll just adapt. Where if he's missing for 2 or 3 games and people say, yeah, they'll lose 2 of them games because he's missing, Pep won't adapt the whole team for Rodri being out for 2 or 3 games. He's out for basically the rest of the season. He will adapt to what he's now got. And I think they will just, once it all clicks, they'll just go on another mad run and be pretty unstoppable, to be fair.
I'll give him a little bit of kudos there, actually. I mean, big up to Peter in the comments just said about the money Pep's had, which is true.
Yeah.
But the last few years, I don't really feel. I think they needed that to establish the whole project. Like, I don't think they haven't been up there in the biggest spenders in the last 3 or 4 years. They seem to find players like Akanji. I don't even know how much he was, but he was like peanuts.
No, he was on a free from Dortmund, I think.
So it's like they get good players for. I mean, I know they've signed some others that are. I'm not saying they're cheap, but they're not in the 100 million brackets like Doku or people like that. I know they have also signed Guardiola for like 90 million or whatever it was, but they've also invested a lot in their youth system, right? And that seems to just churn out player after player, like Rico Lewis. You've got Oscar Bob, looks half decent. Obviously, people like Foden have come through. There seems to be an endless conveyor belt of youth players there. So, fair play to them. I mean, Spurs have outspent them over the last 2 or 3 years, and we've got absolutely nowhere. So.
Yeah. Like we were saying on the Pep tweaks, he does the weird thing of just randomly changing something every season. Like, he's won the league with a false 9. He's won the league with like a proper striker before they had Haaland. He's won the league with Haaland now. Now he's with Haaland with possession-based wingers where you've got Bernardo Silva one side and Grealish the other. He's now gone out and bought 2 actual wingers. And that's wingers that go at people when they come on the pitch. And he just every season he seems to think, you know what, let's just do that. Let's change that. Make people have another sort of dynamic to their play that people have got to worry about. So it's not always the same way, which is an interesting thing with Pep. Although the money thing is interesting, but it would be good to see him try and do it somewhere where he hasn't got either a ridiculous squad to walk into or unlimited cash to spend.
True, but apply the same test we mentioned earlier about Ange when I said, how many players has Ange improved? How many players has Pep improved? Different conversation.
Every single one, pretty much, yeah.
But the thing as well with Pep is that he has to. I feel like he has to work with players that don't have that marquee superstar ego. Like, I don't think Pep would be successful with a Cristiano Ronaldo, like in the prime of his career or later on in his career. Maybe in the early stages, possibly have a good influence on him, but just not that type of profile player.
I suppose. Right, guys, it's been a pleasure. As I said earlier, I'm not going to do the "Come on, you Spurs," but did you want to sign us off, Chris?
Honestly, I'm so depressed at how we played yesterday. They don't deserve it, so I'm all right. I'll let Stocky do "Come on, you Irons" or something. There's an opportunity here without Marlon, right?
Come on, you Irons. Not holding.
On that note, we'll sign out. Nice one, fellas. Catch you soon.
See you later. See you soon.